got a little bit of help from some of the tech stories this morning. Jenny Horne joins me for a look at Taiwan Semi, which has had a pretty good streak of news the last couple days, Jenny. This morning, trading at 208, so off overnight highs. But what's going on? It looks like pretty good sales.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's difficult to find, basically when I look at these semis, especially when we see, I mean, the market and the shape it's in currently, I always look for what the downside could potentially be. It's hard to find that here because they did report record revenue. I mean, coming in for the month of December at roughly $8 billion when converting to US dollars. So that actually brought then their overall revenue, I mean, to roughly like $26 billion, which marked 58% growth from last year. So that's not too shabby. I mean, that's a pretty healthy sales growth pace. Also improving from the month of November, we saw sales up about 0.8%. So modest, but still, I mean, improving substantially from levels seen a year ago. And a lot of their annual revenue now, they're expecting for 2024 totaled, or that was up actually 34% from last year. And also, they're expecting now more of the same. They did say that they reiterated their guide between 26.1 and 26.9 billion. As far as their fourth quarter sales figure, they do release that the more like formal financials next week on January 16th. So a name that, technically speaking, I will say, I know we've seen a pullback this week as some of the remarks out of CES have been disappointing for the semi space. This is one of the most technically beautiful charts I've seen in a while. I mean, we continue to make these higher highs. We pull back, then we see, I mean, like, as far as like trends you're watching, you don't want these names that are just like basically to the moon. I think that this is a healthy sign of a company that is producing consistent revenue, continuing to be a massive leader in the space, and their focus on high-end production of chips. I mean, Nvidia is one of their biggest clients, but then also Apple, Qualcomm. I read a stat that said they produce roughly like 90% of the world's most high-end chips right now.
Yep.
If you want to get a read on the health of AI, look no further. I mean, I know people try to find the negative read with like Nvidia, Jensen, and some of his commentary this week. This is where it starts, though, and I think that this is a really healthy trend and also healthy financials to match.
Good numbers. I like the chart analysis. Very true. We looked at it with Rick yesterday, and it's kind of like maybe a little cup and handle thing going on, which could be bullish if that up and down to 220 and back in the last 3 days was just a reset to find support. If it rallies today, that would certainly help markets a lot, given the role that it is within all these companies and these themes. The other thing is, what I think is interesting is the annual growth was like, what, 35% or 33% or something for the year. But then the last quarter, the last month that they gave, things accelerated, right? That was like 50% plus. So the fact that the more recent kind of sequential growth is faster than the annual is pretty impressive. And I think that probably means that there's probably some implication about Apple sales in there, which would be positive.
So that's exactly what I was reading it as, and I was just reading some of the analyst commentary today that actually thought that JP Morgan thought that this is actually them balancing the ramp down of their Apple product cycle, which I was like, wait a second though. I thought that I read it as a read of an upside for Apple, because to me, if you're seeing your most recent, like your December sales coming in above expectations, ramping from November, like you said, I tend to see that as, hey, maybe this product cycle is actually better than I was thinking. I thought that was an interesting take, but I do think that some of these most advanced processing nodes, I mean, if you talk about like those producing it at their various facilities, the strong demand is there right now, though. Are they going to be able to fulfill another strong year? I think so far as their commentary, they didn't really give much beyond just these financials. I think that it doesn't seem like the growth is stopping at any time soon, especially like you said, picking up from November and prior months.
Okay. Good report there on the numbers. I think that's going to help. There is a more negative commentary from Goldman this morning on advanced micro devices. Is that just because they are not number two? They're like, there is no number two to Nvidia?
Yeah, I would say they're definitely not number two, and they've showed us that over and over again. Talk about the opposite of a technically beautiful chart, as its 50 and 200-day moving averages are completely inverse to what we just talked about with Taiwan Semi. But Goldman today, neutral from buy. I mean, so not like huge downside. They did say that they reduced their price target to 129, so that still does imply, I mean, 6% upside roughly from here. But they said that they still like the fact they're able to take away share from Intel, especially in the PC and traditional server units. But they are increasingly concerned that the rise of these custom central processing units, especially from ARM, are right now going to continue to intensify the competition. I mean, hello, it's not just, I think, ARM, you've the likes of like Broadcom, Marvell, everyone right now is fighting for that lucrative second place. I don't think it necessarily exists in the way that
I don't think it does.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you're competing with Nvidia, but I do think that we got news this week in like as far as like CES, some updates. The market didn't move at all. Like we got news Monday and we didn't even talk about, like no one even paid attention. That to me says where we are in AMD. Also, HSBC earlier this week double downgraded shares, saying they can't compete with Nvidia. So that to me is all you need to know.
They're falling way behind the narrative. All right, well that's stock specific, very much so. Taiwan Semi might be a little bit more broad in its implications. If that rallies, which is kind of up for grabs right now, we closed at 207, it's 208, it's about $1 higher, so not a lot for Taiwan Semi, but at least something that will maybe spin up some of the AI interest. We'll see if they come by dips on big tech. Thanks, Jenny.